Continuing on from chapter 5, we want from us. Because if we're going to keep our profession alive and necessary, we need to know what we should be giving them, what's useful. So, one thing I wanted to point out before we start, you guys, is when you're doing your debates, check in the text, the index at the back. For your topic or in the table of contents. You don't have to use the text. It's got some nice, what's it called? References and stuff you can look at. Just a hint you can use if you wish. Okay, so in this chapter, section 6.9 we're going to omit. I'm going to talk a little bit about it. It's the Olson's clean surplus theory, but you don't have to know all the math and stuff behind it. Mostly I want you to think about how it might do our accounting, because you guys are the ones that are going to shape accounting in the next 20, 30 years, right? Okay. So, outline of lesson, measurement perspective versus information perspective. If you remember, the information perspective we covered in chapter 5, and that means accountants provide info, and investors make their own decisions. So we give them the raw data, and they make all their predictions and stuff from there, and then make their decisions. So what we're going to do today in this chapter, which is cover a new perspective that's more recent and applies a little bit more. We're going to look at why the stock market is not as efficient as we thought, a way of valuing the firm based on financial statements. We're going to cover this very lightly. We're going to talk about measurement perspective applications that we already use in accounting. And finally, we're going to talk about auditor liability. How many of you guys have already taken audit? Any of you? Yeah? Okay. So you understand all that part. Okay, so we're going to just review the information perspective, and that, chapter 5. Individuals, so all the individual investors, are responsible for predicting profitability based on useful information we provide. One of the bases underlying that was that the market is efficient at responding to new information. If good news was released compared to what the expectations were, we would expect the stock price to do what? If good news is released, stock price should go, well, it's up or down? Up, right? Yeah, you guys? Okay. Now, we talked about this time, investors collectively act rationally. This week is the rational debate. Investors are rational, or is that next week? Okay. So, this perspective has been true until recently. And what they saw in the 2007-2008 really cemented that. So, in the previous chapters, we assumed the stock market is a format. So now we're just going to look a little bit further at efficiency of stock markets. And one of the big things about stock markets being efficient is they respond quickly to new information. Okay? So, it has been asserted that security prices respond efficiently, so quickly, to financial statements information. New info. However, there was research done by Lev. In the past, 6% of security price changes were due to our information that we gave them. So, for example, if stock price went up by $1, cents arose from our earnings information. Which is not good as a profession, okay? Now, they talked a lot, and if you read the text, nice overview. One of the things is the larger firms. So big firms. Are they constantly giving out information? Yeah. News releases, press releases, right? This happened, oh, and our news decided on a new plan of something, right? So one of the things our information, investors are getting information from things other than just the financial statements. Okay? So that was one of the things. So one reason in large firms, investors getting info other sources, e.g. press releases. But this was happening not in just huge firms, but in medium. Well, so because it was poor earnings quality, leading to the need for more value-oriented information. Okay? So investors are trying desperately to predict what your stock, and to do that, they rely on lots of things, but part of it is our financial information we give them. So they have to look at it, they have to look at the trends, they have to go, okay, so now they're opening a new branch in Quebec. How's that going to affect it based on previous times they opened branches? It's a lot of thinking, okay? And as we've seen on board, doing things like day trading, right, where we just don't even have, we didn't even have that before, right? So if we gave more value-oriented information, so we calculate potential future, that would increase their ability to predict. And if that's true, then we should actually be providing more of it. Okay? Now, this leads to the measurement perspective. Okay, so information perspective, we said, hey, just give the raw data to the investors. They will do all their predicting. Now, investor groups have changed. There's a lot more day traders. Time has decreased, right? You've got to make trades faster and things like that. Complexity of financial statements has changed, right? We switched over to IFRS, a lot more disclosure, a lot more MD&A, that kind of stuff. So things have changed underneath. So in order, maybe we should provide information. Everybody good? Okay. So the measurement perspective, and remember we're thinking versus the information perspective. Responsibilities placed on accountants to provide necessary information for investors to make their own decisions about buying or selling. You can add that in. So the raw data isn't enough. Investors find it hard. Good news into future earnings. How to relate the two, and how much is future earnings going to increase, that kind of stuff. So we are responsible under this approach for incorporating current fair value or future value numbers into the statements. So we need predictive numbers. What will happen? And again, this goes back to the problem we had when you learned about the conceptual framework in Accounting 315. You're balancing two things off, relevance and reliability, right? So, information perspective is more reliable. We can use historical cost because is that 100% reliable? Well, not 100. Yeah, it's got the price, check, okay? The minute we start going to fair value, we lose some of that reliability, but what do we gain? Relevance, it's more useful. So think of relevance as more useful to decision makers, okay? An easy example is on your financial statement. If you haven't marked your assets to fair value under IFRS, but 20 years ago is sitting at some low number, 300,000, when actually it's worth 30 million now. Which is more relevant to the user? The 30 million. But is it absolutely right? If you guys were all appraisers and you appraised the land, are you all going to get 30 million? No. And what it actually sells for can be determined by a lot of things, because now Toronto and stuff, Halifax, Vancouver always is. But even us, we're in a little bit of one. So we're trading off relevance and reliability. Trading off the reliability, relevance. Any comments or questions on that? Okay, great. So, the assets, obviously, then their historical costs. And why are they? What are they trying to do? What are investors trying to do with our numbers? It starts with a P. Predict, right? They're predicting how it'll look in the future so they can guess whether the stock price is going to go up or down. Okay? So if you were answering a question like this, how does the measurement perspective help by saying, well, investors use our information to predict what will happen in the future. And to do that, relevant information is better than just reliable. So present value versus historical. But we trade off reliability for relevance. We lose some reliability, but we get relevance. Does that make sense? After I bumbled it. So the measurement perspective incorporates market value and fair value information directly into the financial statements. And this is where IFRS was a huge step for Canada over Canadian GAAP. Okay? You end up with a mixed model. You get some historical cost and some with present value. Okay, everybody clear on what the measurement approach is and how it's different than information approach? Okay. And just a reminder, you guys, your final is going to be take home, so you don't have to memorize this stuff. You'll have it all there. I want you to be able to think and then answer questions. Okay? So as you're going through the questions from the chapters, sorry, I lost my balance. If you have a question, would that count? Just send it to me and I'll let you know. I've also put up some sample under problem solutions. I wrote out some sample answers for some of the questions. Okay? Okay. So just out of curiosity, since we're here with a mixed model, reported at historical cost on our financial statements and something that's recorded at present value or current value or market value. If you can think way back to your other accounting courses. Well, can we still record capital assets at historical cost? Yeah. Under IFRS, you have the ASPE, you don't. It can only be, okay? So capital assets, you have the choice under IFRS, but not ASPE. Not ASPE for fair value. So capital assets are historical cost, but there is the choice under IFRS to put at fair value. Do we have at present value? You learned it, any of you guys that are taking 410, can't tell because those masks. I can't tell. Or what did you learn about investments? They're fair value models? Yeah, right? Remember when you have passive investments, we have fair value through OCI and fair value through profit and loss. Different textbooks call it different things, but it's fair value OCI, fair value profit and loss, or net income or something. So investments. Now what about AR? Is that historical cost or present value? How about just the AR account itself? Historical or present value? Or market value? What you're actually going to get? Well, AR by itself is probably more historical, right? Looks at present value. And we did that bit. Now this is way back. AFDA, allowance for doubtful accounts. Right? You estimate that, what you'll be able to collect, that turns it into a number that's closer to what you're going to get than just the historical. Does that make sense? So, not only do we have a mixed model in our whole financial statements, we have a mixed model just for A. So AR less AFDA, net AR is current value. Any questions? Okay, so we're leaving measurement perspective right now. We're still talking about overall, are the stock markets efficient and are they going to stay efficient? So, are investors rational? So we're looking at, is the market still efficient? Okay, so investors make irrational decisions due to limited attention. So no time to properly assess financial information. And again, the examples and things like that. Can't read my own writing. Okay, conservatism. So, with that, if you have a prior belief, you weight it more heavily even when you get. So you're going along thinking, you know, this stuff is just bad news, it hasn't done well, keeps making corrections to its financial statement, the whole thing. And you've made up your mind for whatever reason. Good news comes along, and it's great news, whatever, you will discount it more because of your prior beliefs. Okay? And we do that with everything, right? So conservatism, influence, how receptive you are to new info. And if any of you are interested in reading about how poor we are at making decisions as humans. Oh, they're down here. Kahneman and just look them up. They started off the rational thinking research and they worked together for years. And some of their stuff, they've published books that are written for laymen, and it's amazing what we think we're being so rational, and we've gone off to the side because of whatever beliefs or whatever we're thinking. So they're very interesting. And a little depressing. Okay, overconfidence, you overestimate the precision of your decision. Put it over here. Okay. Representativeness bias. This is another big one. And this assigns too much weight to info that supports point. Okay, so you've got your significant other, your partner, whoever you've been dating for, whatever. You have a decision about whether you're going to stay with them or break up, okay? So you go talk to your friends. Well, whose weighting or opinions do you take most to heart? We think we'll listen to them all rationally and weigh them and, oh, how this friend knows me, or that kind of stuff when knows both of us. Instead, we hone in when someone goes, oh yeah, and you want to stay with them, right? Oh yeah, I really like that person and you guys are good together and all that carries a lot of weight. And we don't even realize we're effective. So investors do the same thing. They think, well, or think of the vaccine, whether you're anti or pro-vaccine, whatever. You're thinking, vaccine's pretty new. I don't know. We haven't tested it for years. I really would like it to be tested. I don't know. So you hear information that says, oh, maybe it makes people sick, you know, seizures. Okay? I don't think that's ever been said. That's why I picked it. You're going to immediately cling to that information because it's